Today I want to talk about the importance of feedback loops in your community, and specifically how the geography of your community can impact these feedback loops. So one of the big themes that you're going to hear from me on this channel is just how important feedback is. And this goes for any business, right? Like whoever your customers are, the customer's always right. And in your community, the community members oftentimes always right. And it's important to get feedback from your community members on an ongoing basis to understand if your offerings are landing or if they're not, and what other additional things you can add to your community experience. And you can get feedback in a variety of different ways, right? You can use feedback forms. Something as simple as a Google form can be nice. I use Typeform with a lot of my ventures, and I recommend that a lot because it's just a very beautiful form experience. But you can use a whole bunch of different forms, tools to collect feedback virtually. But I think there's something really vital when it comes to feedback, and that's also getting feedback in person. And so, especially if you are a hybrid community or in-person community, it's crucial that you create opportunities for yourself to interface with your members and get feedback from them in person. And this is where the geography piece comes in. So if you are lucky enough to have your own physical space for your community, then it becomes a lot easier to be able to get this feedback because you're constantly kind of interacting with each other. The analogy that I like to think of is what it's like to probably work in an office. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I'm the best person to use this analogy because I haven't worked in an office I've never worked in an office. So I'm not sure exactly, but I've heard that when you work in an office, there's typically, or even like maybe a more modern working environment or a co-working space, which I have worked in before, there's this sort of like interfacing that happens that's casual, that can be really beneficial to the actual projects that you're working on. I know, for example, companies that really focus on creating cafeterias that are really well placed in their workspaces so that people can actually discuss work ideas over lunch. And sometimes breaking bread with people and simply discussing casually problems that you're encountering can be a lot more effective than actually planning a formal meeting to discuss those problems, right? So there's this phenomena where when you put people together in a casual setting and basically create the opportunity for them to kind of run into each other, then magic can happen and people can discuss ideas together, they can problem solve, and all things like this. And so it's important to recognize that if you don't have a physical space for your community, maybe you're starting out, maybe you're like me right now with the Flying Sage and we have different event venues that we use, and maybe that's your strategy that you stick with. It's important to make sure that you are putting yourself in those event spaces, right? And you're putting yourselves in places where you are going to be running into community members. And I share this because I actually just went on a walk this morning and I ran into two community members outside of a cafe and ended up talking to them for about an hour about things that were coming up in the community. I was sharing things with them that I was working on in terms of our brand and marketing and just problems that we're solving, different offerings we want to maybe bring in or take away. And it was very insightful to just have their feedback, right? And so my point here is that sometimes, it can be nice to create a formal feedback experience, but sometimes the casual encounters are best. So that's my video for you today. If you're curious to learn more about community building and specifically incorporate some tools that you can use to help systematize your community building process, then definitely check out Notion Panda. That's my online template store where you can find a lot of different awesome Notion templates to help you organize your community business. All right, that's it for today, and we'll see you on the next video.